Okay. Okay. Well, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here with She Politics. Today we're here with Representative Kapela. Could you start by giving us a self-introduction of yourself? Tell us a little bit about your background and what motivated you to pursue a career in politics.
Absolutely. Well, aloha, everyone. My name is Jeanne Kapela. I represent House District 5 on Hawaii Island. For those of you who don't know the geography of Hawaii Island, that's Kona to Keau, so basically the southern half of the island. I'm the first woman, first Native Hawaiian, and first person born and raised in the district to ever represented in the state house. I ran for office mainly because I believe that our voices matter. When you look at the average age of a legislator, it's well over 50. I was first elected when I was 25. I am the youngest serving female representative or female legislator for the state. And I have been for a number of years since I first got elected. But I think that we have different stories to tell when we're younger and when we are experiencing the world in a different way and in a different space and through a different generation and through a different lens. And it's important to make sure that that voice is shared within state government so that the decisions that we're making aren't made by people that are much older who may not be around to see the actual impact of that legislation, but we can see and feel it as we're experiencing it and as we move through life. So I think that's one of the reasons why I ran for office. I also ran because I think that representation matters. I wanted to see a young Native woman representing my community because I wanted to see someone that looked like me, experienced the world like me, in office, making decisions that were going to impact people from my community. So yeah, I guess that's why I ran for office. A little bit more about my background. I actually got involved in politics through Miss Hawaii. I was Miss Hawaii in 2015, and I ran for office because, to be very honest, I couldn't afford to go to college unless I had a scholarship. And Miss America is the largest scholarship provider in the country for young women. So I greatly benefited from that. I started a nonprofit organization through my platform. At the time, it was sex trafficking, hashtag it ends with us. Very, very kitschy pageant. But through that, I started working specifically on educating youth about the dangers of human trafficking and how they can protect themselves, their family, and their friends. Hawaii has the highest number of sex trafficking victims per capita in the entire country. And that's not something that most people recognize or understand when they think about paradise, but it makes sense when you think about places that are high tourism areas, high military areas. Oftentimes they have a high sex trafficking rate. So I started advocating at the state legislature, trying to change some of our state laws to better protect young women and victims of sex trafficking. And I realized how hard it was to pass anything. And I was like, this can't be how it is. If we can't pass anything, even related to the bare minimum of freedom, then how are we going to pass anything relating to like paid sick or family leave or things that benefit workers or childcare access or truly affordable housing for our state? So I figured, well, if that's the case, then I'm going to go and work at the state legislature. So I worked in the legislature for a couple of years. I was a legislative aide and a clerk, and I was an advocate for a couple of years as well. And I was still so frustrated. So I through that experience, I realized, you know what? If these people can do it, so can I. And that's why I ran for office.
Wow, that is a really inspiring story. And could you tell us a little bit more about some of the current issues that you're focusing on right now during your term?
Absolutely. I love this question because I think this is where my heart really expands. There's the politics of the politics, which is like all of the shenanigans and the faction building that I just can't stand. It makes me feel icky. But I love the issue areas. And to be able to talk about the issues that I'm passionate about. I chair the Working Families Caucus. The mission of the caucus is to be a pathway for civic engagement for community members, community organizations, nonprofit orgs, and labor unions to be able to fight for the North Stars that we deserve for our communities. Through that, we've really championed things like paid sick and family leave. My first year in office, we were instrumental in creating the raise in the minimum wage. There's still a long way to go. We still have to get the minimum wage higher, but to be pegged to our cost of living here in Hawaii. But that was still a really big push. And So some of those things are really important. Labor issues are really important, making sure that workers have really strong rights. And as a young mother now, I actually gave birth while I was in office. I have a 9-month-old now. So I came back to work 1 month after giving birth to her, partially because we don't have paid family leave here in our state. So for me, a big issue in my heart has been championing access to childcare. This last year, we were able to work with a national nonprofit to change our state campaign spending commission to allow the use of campaign funds for childcare so that we can have more young women run for office. I think the reality is that if we want real change that impacts real people, and if we want more young women in office, we have to eliminate some of the barriers to being able to be in this space. And having access to real childcare, having access to being able to use some of your campaign funds so that you can actually campaign while your child is being cared for is really important. So some of those issues. I'm also a big supporter of championing free community college and access to higher education. We know that there are so many students that want to be able to have that option. I was one of them, but I had to find a different pathway to be able to pay for it. And we want other students to be able to experience that the doors that open when you can access higher education, without having to shoulder the burden of the cost. So some of those things, along with championing full funding for our public education system, is really important to me. So yeah, there's a lot of things that I'm working on, a lot of like intersectional issue areas. With the Working Families Caucus, we look at it as a triangle in the importance of labor issues, Ohana care or child care, and worker issues. And the reality is that like you need all of them. You can't just have one portion or address one issue. You have to address all of the different issues so that they all really align, and that so that you can actually move things forward.
Thank you for telling us about those issues. And how do you feel your experience as a woman yourself has shaped your perspective and your approach to the issues that you've talked about?
Yeah, another really great question. Not this last legislative session, but in 2022, we had, well, there was the overturn of Roe, and the Dobbs decision, which had honestly crippling effects all across the nation. And we saw some of those effects here in Hawaii as well. I think that we're so lucky to live here in Hawaii. Our issue areas are a little bit different than what you would see on the continent, where there are women who are experiencing awful things when it comes to abortion rights, and being able to care for their bodies or make decisions about their own physical health. But here in Hawaii, we had some of those battles on our House floor as well. And being a young woman, having experienced my own journey with an abortion, I was able to tell my story on the House floor. And I think that it's really important when we can utilize our lived experiences to make decisions that make the world better for others. Abortion isn't something that everyone wants to talk about. I think there are many women who haven't shared their story, and I think they're now maybe starting to share their story, but it's such a personal decision. And it should never be a decision that's made in a political arena. So to be able to utilize my own personal experiences as a young woman, to be able to share that on the House floor and fight for a better future for my daughter, for hopefully one day her daughter, and for every young woman and every young family across our state is instrumental. So I'm really proud of that. And I think that we need more young women in office if we really want things that benefit our families, that we really have opportunities to benefit our keiki and our communities as a whole, and really put women at the center of that instead of as a side thought. We just need more of us in office. So I'm proud to be a part of young female leadership that's really starting to open the doors and I guess in many ways kind of beat down the barriers, so that other young women like maybe yourself or anyone who's watching this don't have to experience some of these hardships in office, because one day you will be here.
Thank you. So that kind of touches to my next question, which is, what steps do you believe need to be taken to achieve greater gender equality in political representation?
Oh, yes. Yes, there's so many issues. I mean, here in the state of Hawaii, I think that we only hit I think it's like 14% of our state house is female, which is a really low number. And I mean, the numbers get smaller and smaller as you go up, right? So like in Congress, I was looking at a statistic the other day from Vote Mama Foundation. So for anyone who's interested in like understanding the gender gap in politics, Vote Mama is a really great organization to follow and look at. And it was started actually by a woman who ran for office with two young kids, and she experienced all these hardships. And that's really how they started Vote Mama Foundation. But I was looking at it, and it's just, I think it said only 1% of women in Congress have young children. And I mean, I can understand it. I am the only young woman right now currently in the House that has, I think, a child under 2. And it's really difficult. I experienced major barriers because my child is breastfed and I couldn't bring her onto the House floor. And there are moments when you have 4-hour-long hearings on the House floor. And I mean, either I leave the desk to go and nurse my baby because I can't bring her onto the floor. And I mean, that's a barrier that has to be addressed in the future if we want other young women to be able to have families. I think the other issue that I've seen just for myself is that if we want neighbor island representation that is young and female or femme identifying, like these women have kids, and a lot of them choose not to run because it's really difficult to take your child back and forth. Do you keep them in school in Oahu where you have to work, or do you leave your child and you're away from them for a whole week or sometimes longer on a neighbor island? And for my partner and I, we don't have family support where we can just like give our baby to a grandparent. That's not a thing. So I have to bring my baby with me everywhere. And I think those are some of the barriers that we really have to address when we look at, if we want real female representation, we have to have access to real paid family leave. We have to have salaries that allow families to work here and serve in the state and still be able to afford childcare. We need truly affordable childcare. One of the things that I'm working on currently is working in partnership with the Lieutenant Governor to create state-funded childcare, specifically for representatives, for state employees, for staff, that is right here, either on campus or right next to the Capitol, so that women who come, and whether you're testifying or you're working here in the building, in some capacity, you have access to childcare, so that you can do your job. So those are we're trying to address those barriers, but it's slow. And I think people don't think about them until you're experiencing them in the position. So yeah, I hope that answered your question, because I think there are a lot of barriers. I think that there's a lot of work that needs to be done, even still.
I definitely agree. And what skills do you believe are essential for high school students who aspire to pursue a career in politics? And what are some specific organizations or activities you would recommend to these students?
Yeah, just get involved. One of the things that I would say is reach out to your local representative, find who that person is. One of the things I've noticed is that being in this building, a lot of my colleagues are much more open to listening to and supporting youth voices. We recognize that you folks are the future. So many of us recognize that. So definitely, if you're interested, just reach out to your local representative, see if they have any internships available, or if they're willing to take you on in any capacity to come in and support the office or to support your community. The other thing that I would recommend is that through the State House, we have our Keiki Caucus. So similar to the Working Families Caucus, but focused really around youth. So you have an opportunity to do, what is it called? It's our youth internship program. So every single year during legislative session, if you apply for the program, you are partnered with a legislator from your community or like a neighboring representative, if that person's already paired. And you'll have the opportunity to receive, I think it's like a half a credit, for participating, and you get to come to the Capitol every week, and you get to learn and understand. And for me, when I've had interns through the program, we give them the opportunity to be able to learn to learn about a subject area or to have a subject area that they're passionate about and to write their own resolution and follow and track that resolution through the entire process and hopefully pass it. And other legislators do different things in their office, but it's a really wonderful opportunity, I think, for young people. The other thing that I would say is just get started. If you're passionate about something, start talking about it. Start a social media page. Share what you're passionate about. Share why it's important. Start talking to your peers. Gather groups and start organizing is what I would say. Because organizing, I think, is something that you're going to utilize whether you're pushing a piece of legislation or you're pushing a union or you are organizing for change in any way or capacity. And that's something that you can start doing now in high school that you will take through your college experience and one day into your professional experience as well. So yeah, I think the best advice that I could give any young student is reach out. And if you don't get a response, reach out again. Because you just have to keep trying. You have to knock down doors and knock down barriers. And I think the earlier you learn that, the more successful you're going to be, no matter what career you end up in. Because it's the same thing. Even when you get into the legislature, you're still knocking down doors and shifting barriers.
And finally, what advice would you give to young women in high school, particularly aspiring to enter politics?
I'm trying to think back to when I was in high school and what I wish I would have heard. And I think the advice that I give every young woman is to believe in yourself. I think that the world can be really harsh. And we look at different laws and it's so easy to get super overwhelmed. And it's easy to get overwhelmed with our schoolwork and extracurricular activities and all of the different things, but just recognize that you are doing a wonderful job. And you have everything in you to do whatever it is you want to do. You just have to believe in yourself. Yeah, just believe in yourself and surround yourself with really good mentors that care about you as an individual and want to watch you succeed.
Thank you so much for doing this interview. That is the end of my questions.
Okay, awesome. You're welcome. Thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you. Okay, I'll go ahead and